Superman is the most powerful figure in the DC universe. When he absorbs the power of the sun, he becomes a godlike being. He can easily defend against Huang Yuanlong, block the attack with his body, and then shatter the opponent's weapon with a light blow. Unsophisticated humans mistakenly regard a being more terrifying than Thanos as their leader, despite Superman's extreme cooperation. They are unaware of the monster they are provoking. Superman was born on a distant planet called Nemesis. Because of advanced technology, they no longer need artificial reproduction to give birth to offspring, but mass production like an assembly line. Therefore, every baby's life has been planned before birth. But Superman's parents thought that this was too cruel, so they gave birth to Nemesis, the only naturally conceived child, despite the physical and psychological pain. However, Al, a scientist, discovered that due to excessive exploitation, the planet was already on the verge of collapse. So he hoped that the elders would agree to let him take the gene points away, because only in this way could the race be prevented from going extinct. As he finished speaking, General Zod and his men entered the council hall. They not only shot all the elders present, but also planned to imprison Al. He struggled to untie the ropes during the escort. The shocking scene outside made Al dare not imagine that the entire country had become a battlefield. Fortunately, at the critical moment, Helicopter fell from the sky, so he took the plane and immediately came to the central messenger room. This is the manufacturing factory of the Nemesis children. The secret point that records the genes of the entire race is also right after this. Al took him back to the base and used an instrument to decompose it and inject it all into his son's body. He wanted to send Superman to the distant Earth so that at the right time, their entire race could be revived. Superman boarded the spaceship while his parents watched. Meanwhile, Zod led a large army to Al and attempted to stop him. In the end, he even sacrificed his life. Fortunately, at the last moment, his mother turned on the switch, and under the watchful eyes of everyone, Superman flew with the spaceship to the Earth was captured by Zod, who was surrounded by the belated guards. As they had just killed the members of the Elders, they were exiled to the black hole for 300 years after the liquid amber entered. As Al had expected, the star exploded, and the entire planet was turned into dust in an instant. Fortunately, Superman successfully landed on the Earth and was taken in and raised by a pair of kind people. At 10 years old, peace was shattered as the Superman blood began to activate. He gained the ability to hear small sounds and see through people's bodies with his eyes. Clark felt lost for a while and quickly ran into the utility room. When he reached the door, he was greeted by the teacher's careful greetings. The light burned the door handle red. At this time, everyone around him regarded him as a monster. Only Clark's adopted daughter, although thin, gave everything for her son. Clark was always bullied by his classmates as an outlier due to his physical fitness and the people around him. However, on the way to school that day, the school bus suddenly lost control and crashed into the guardrail on the side. Then it plunged into the lake. Seeing that the lake water was about to fill the entire car, Clark decided not to go to school again. He tried his best to push the school bus to the shore with his bare hands. Although he saved dozens of classmates, he was questioned by the parents. His father told him that humans are naturally disgusted with the opposite sex, so he can no longer use his superpowers, especially in front of strangers. Clark believed he was innocent. Faced with his son's interrogation, the man could only open the long-sealed underground garage and wait for Clark to leave. A massive alien spaceship appeared in front of them. It was the transportation he used to come to Earth. Clark found it difficult to accept after learning all this. However, to stay with his father forever, he had to follow the advice and seal off his superpowers. He thought the family of 3 would live happily like this. However, on the way of the outing, a tornado suddenly blew up in front of them. The father asked Clark to take his mother to hide in the bridge, but he was trapped in the car because he was trying to save the dog. He broke free, but the tornado had already reached his head. Clark was about to go forward but was severely stopped by his father because he didn't want his son to be regarded as an alien by others. They exchanged a final look, and then the father was taken away by the tornado. It was the most painful moment in Clark's life. To forget this, he came to work alone on a fishing boat. Despite being busy all day, the strong man on the boat did not intentionally bury his map, but instead looked after the simple-minded guy. The fishing boat received a distress signal from afar, and when everyone was at a loss, Clark jumped into the sea alone. He rescued the trapped people inside by crushing the steel door. Clark used his body to block the attack when he saw that the iron frame behind was about to hit the rescue plane. The helicopter successfully rescued the people, but Clark was knocked unconscious by a heavy object. When he woke up, he realized he could never return to the fishing boat, so he left. Clark took a few rags from the side and found a job in a local bar. A drunk was harassing the bar staff, but Superman was working there. When he tried to stop him, Superman didn't stop and poured a whole glass of beer on Clark's head. Clark thought he was just a strong man with nothing on his body. But when the man was ready to drive home after eating and drinking, he found that his Optimus Prime had been twisted into a knot and his identity was exposed. Clark could only go to the next destination. At the same time, they found a huge iron monster under the ice of 10,000 meters in a military base in Antarctica. This product was beyond the reach of human technology. Lewis came here the following day to investigate. While taking pictures of the surroundings, he noticed a mysterious figure flashing by. Intrigued, Lewis immediately followed. After passing the steep cliff, he reached a large mine. Unexpectedly, the ice passage, which could fit a person's height, was illuminated by Superman's laser eyes repeatedly. Clark found a huge alien spaceship in the depths of the ice. Without hesitation, he inserted the graphite necklace left by his father into the S-shaped slot when it suddenly appeared in front of him. A monster tied up Clark from behind, but he broke free and started the spaceship with the key. The monster left confidently. When Clark regained consciousness, he saw a strange figure in the distance looking at him. In order to find out, he could only follow it. At the same time, Louis also came to the interior of the spaceship and looked at the monster in front of him. He wanted to take a picture, but unexpectedly, the monster whipped him and threw him away. It approached this side, and Clark arrived just in time. He then used both hands to crush it into scrap metal. Clark quickly used a laser to stop the bleeding and disinfect the wound when he saw a large hole in the female reporter's abdomen. Louis woke up from his coma to find that the other party had already left the trouble spot in a spaceship. He finally saw his biological father through the holographic projection in the spaceship. Then he learned from Al that he was the only hope of Nemesis. His father hoped that Clark could restore the family's glory without harming humans. In order to let him better integrate into the Earth, Al also gave him a set of Superman battlesuits. He then accompanied Kang Neng to decelerate. The DC Universe's mightiest superhero finally emerges slowly. Due to the disparity between the Earth's sun and that of Nemesis, Superman's ability to absorb solar radiation renders him unbeatable on Earth. Clark leaves the silver water, kicks his feet, and jumps hundreds of meters. He continues to accelerate and jumps even farther. Finally, he rushes into the atmosphere at rest. Although his speed has far exceeded the minimum required for flying, because it is his first flight, the walking Superman could not find the balance point of his body. He was shaking more and more and finally fell to the ground. Although the granite was smashed into a big hole, Clark was still unharmed because as long as the sun could shine, no matter how serious his injuries were, they would be repaired instantly. Clark trained, leaped, and created a crack in the ground. He adjusted his body in the air and crossed the grassland. He mastered flying and was as flexible as a rock. Superman flew into space. He wanted to tell his mother about this as soon as possible. After asking around, Louis finally found the farm, but Clark hoped that he would not disturb him. He said that he just wanted to be an ordinary person and accompany him. After learning all this, Louis finally decided to help him save his fate. However, just when life was about to return to peace, an alien spaceship suddenly landed on the Earth. He not only easily controlled all the electronic equipment on the Earth, but also ordered them through various human languages to hand over Superman Clark within one day. Otherwise, the end of the Earth would be exactly the same as that of the Nemesis. Although they did not know the truth of the matter, they still wanted to prevent it. In the end, they decided to capture Louis, the only person who had contact with Superman. Upon learning the news, Superman immediately rushed to the scene to rescue Louis and prevent innocent people from fighting. He willingly accepted the military's arrest. But people didn't know about handcuffs at all. To Superman, they are simply toys. As long as he wants, he is no match for everyone. But in order to avoid fighting innocent people, he finally agreed to hand himself over to the invaders as a hostage. Superman was taken on a spaceship by aliens, along with his girlfriend Louise, under the watchful eyes of many soldiers. Despite the Major's extreme dissatisfaction, he ultimately had to endure and survive in order to avoid a war. After that, the spaceship was sailing. On the way, Clark quietly handed the graphite key to Louis, and then the two were brought before the general. Superman, having already adapted to Earth's environment, immediately felt extremely uncomfortable upon boarding the spaceship. He eventually vomited blood and fainted on the ground. When he woke up again, he found that he was brought to a fantasy world. Zod hoped Superman would join him to transform Earth into a hostile environment and use genetic power points to complete the revival plan. Superman quickly put on his battlesuit and woke up, but the spaceship blocked the sunlight, making him powerless. On the other hand, Louis was locked in a prison room. He inserted the key into the controller and pressed it lightly. Superman's father reappeared behind him. Al's masterpiece, the entire spaceship, was easily controlled by him. Later, Al used his special powers to alter the spaceship's climate and control the hatch. Louis fired at the right moment while the soldier was distracted. Together, they reached the cockpit. However, the moment he started, the hull was broken by the enemy. He had no choice but to bite the bullet and fly towards the Earth. Superman regained his strength and easily escaped, getting rid of his restraints and leaving a certain place under his father's guidance. Clark desperately accelerated to the top of the spaceship after Louis fell uncontrollably to the ground. He punched the hatch and blocked the explosion damage with his body. Simultaneously, an alien spaceship landed above the farm. The man who got off the spaceship was General Dodd, but the response point was not in the spaceship. Seeing that he was about to attack the sheep again, at the critical moment, Clark arrived in time and pushed Dodd to crash into one building after another. He also punched Dodd in the process of flying. However, the next second, Dodd's helmet malfunctioned due to the violent collision. He kept having hallucinations like Clark in his childhood. When Superman was about to rush over, an alien spaceship suddenly appeared behind him and then flew Clark away without saying a word. They not only rescued General Dodd, but also saved him. Then he threw down 2 rounds of Nemesis, ready to teach the traitor a lesson. Seeing that the war was about to break out, the military fighter planes also arrived at the scene in time. He set all 3 people as attack targets and then fired a Gatling gun. The strong man was blown away by the artillery fire. After getting up, he was furious, so he leaped over to the fighter plane and threw the big guy weighing millions of pounds to the ground. Then it was the next one's turn, but he was stopped by Superman, who arrived in time. Then the 2 of them fell into the coffee shop below. Superman was no match for the well-trained Nemesis warrior. Despite his strong resistance to blows, he couldn't withstand 2 equally powerful opponents. In the end, he was even strangled by the neck, which triggered the military support could not come over. They held back a Nemesis warrior, and Superman and another person started a solo. Then they picked him up and threw him to the other side. All the soldiers were solved by the female warrior. At the critical moment, Superman arrived in time and destroyed the protective mask on his head in one fell swoop. Superman wanted to take the opportunity to solve him completely, but at this time a car suddenly flew towards this side and he was knocked unconscious. The military also immediately, a small missile was fired in this direction to supplement the damage. At this time, the alien spaceship blew up all the aircraft. A strong man then carried the unconscious female warrior onto the spaceship. Following the battle, the military concluded that Superman was not the enemy of the Earth. But their crisis was not resolved. In order to completely destroy the Earth, the planet was turned into a planet suitable for the Nemesis people to live in. He actually ordered the launch of the world engine. The giant spaceship split into two in the air and then landed on 2 layers of the Earth. He planned to use the spaceship's magnetic field to alter the Earth's environment. If successful, all humans would be instantly affected by gravity. Superman quickly jumped and accelerated towards the spaceship after learning everything. Despite dodging the bullet, he was caught by the opponent and thrown into the magnetic field, even though he was fascinated by the mechanical arm made of countless particles. Seeing innocent civilians about to be crushed by gravity, he endured the pain and rushed to the core of the spaceship. But at this moment, Zod appeared behind Louis in the spaceship. Seeing him lock on the target and about to launch a missile, Superman fell from the sky. He penetrated the spaceship and came to the cockpit. Then, without saying a word, he used his laser eyes to cut the entire spaceship. Zod fell to the ground with the hull, but he did not die. He was lucky to find a side when the world engine sucked away everything around him. Zod vowed to make the traitor pay with blood by knocking Crack away without a word. The concrete building in front of him was like tofu dregs. Zod was so angry that the laser eye memory was triggered. He threw out the oil tanker, but Clark walked over it easily. However, the kind-hearted Superman was obviously no match for Zod. They fought from the ground to the sky. Zod picked up the steel frame and Superman melted it with his electric eyes. But when Zod dragged off the steel suit on his body, he found that he could also fly freely in the air. After that, they continued to wreak havoc in the city. The fighting was so fierce that even the space satellite became their weapon. The two of them fell to the ground like a meteor. They landed in a stadium. Seeing innocent citizens all around, Zod fired a laser to force Clark to attack him. After 3 considerations, he decided to break Zod's neck. Then, after the last of his kind fell to the ground, Clark roared in pain. The Earth crisis was resolved temporarily, but Clark's identity as Superman was also revealed to the public and became a tool for the authorities. Wall sign.